Ladies and gentlemen, you might have heard John Durham resigned. Oh, there goes the Durham probe. Oh my goodness. No more special counsel. This is not true. Ladies and gentlemen, Durham remains special counsel overseeing Trump-Russia probe. February 26, 2021. Washington, U.S. Attorney John Durham said Friday that he will resign from his position as the top federal prosecutor in Connecticut, but is remaining as special counsel to oversee the Justice Department's investigation into the origins of the Russia probe that shadowed Donald Trump's presidency. He's only resigning from his post as U.S. Attorney, as are all the other attorneys, federal prosecutors who were appointed by President Trump. That's what every administration does. They force out the prosecutors or the federal officials of the previous administration, and install their own federal officials. But here, Durham will resign from his post as U.S. Attorney from Connecticut on Monday. However, this is a special counsel, just like the Mueller probe special counsel. In fact, it's even broad. Its mandate is even more broad and even more vague. He can actually investigate Caligula, Biden's son. If there's a link between what he's looking into, he can investigate anyone as long as there's a link. So you had Michael Cohen and Stormy. That was one of the pointless investigations that came out of the Mueller probe. That had nothing to do with Trump and Russia, which was a purchased, fabricated. They actually bought their own tinfoil hat fantasy. The Steele dossier was purchased by Clinton. We can go through this. I've spoken about this endlessly on this channel. The Steele dossier was purchased by Hillary Clinton and the Democratic National Committee. The Washington Post reported on that, and everybody knows that the DNC and Clinton purchased a dossier of salacious garbage, gossip, and hearsay against Trump. They would never allow that to happen towards them. They would never allow a dossier to be purchased from their direct political rivals. Everything the past 4 years was phrased and shaped in this kind of way where they were the ones who were wronged. How dare Trump, defeat Clinton? It had to have been with help from Russian Facebook ads. They made claims, baseless claims without evidence. They never had direct evidence. Dianne Feinstein, Adam Schiff, none of them, James Clapper, none of them had any direct evidence that Trump purchased Facebook ads or that he worked with Putin or Russian intelligence officials. The Russian intelligence officials they indicted had nothing to do with Trump, and they only charged those people based on the viewpoint and assessment, or if you want to say evidence, of Company One. Company One was also outsourced by the Democratic Party. It was a third-party tech firm. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. I have live streams every evening at around 7 or 8 p.m. every evening. And ladies and gentlemen, so I've started the live streams back up. Go to hagoodman.com if you want to read my writing in The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, Jerusalem Post, The Federalist, other publications. If you want to support my voice long-term, ladies and gentlemen, your support is extremely important, and it's just tremendously helpful for me to remain independent. My Patreon is below in the pinned comment, description, and also on hagoodman.com. Ladies and gentlemen, so hit subscribe. The Durham probe continues. It is a special counsel, and even Lawfare has a great article. It's a liberal publication, Lawfare. And it's how do you solve a problem like John Durham? Basically saying that, well, his mandate as a special counsel is all-encompassing. He could investigate anybody. And so they went for 4 years. They spent 4 years, every single second of every single hour of every single day of every single week, saying that Trump is an illegitimate president, delegitimizing the office of the presidency, making baseless claims and allegations, tinfoil hat nonsense, these fabricated hoaxes. Whether it was, he pressured Zelensky into looking into Biden. Well, so what? That's what the U.S. attorneys right now are doing with his son's taxes. So it's like they obsess over Trump's taxes, but he was a billionaire from real estate. He's been on the Forbes wealthiest list since 1982. It's an inaugural issue. It's the Bidens and the Clintons and Democrats and many Republicans who enrich themselves from politics. If you enrich yourself from politics, you are selling either the notion or the potential for you're selling access to the United States government, or the perception, I should say, of access. It's interesting because they don't investigate Democrats or the Clintons based on Clinton Cash, the book by Peter Schweitzer, but they will investigate based on a dossier. They'll investigate Trump based on a hunch. Like, the Southern District of New York does not have an actual crime that they're leveling against Trump. Inflating the value of his buildings, that's an issue between him and Deutsche Bank. If indeed he did that and broke the law, it would be the bank that notifies the authorities, not the other way around. It wouldn't be the authorities saying, hey, wait, well, did he? He must have done something. I mean, it's Trump after all. I mean, he's capable of anything. That's what they did for 4 years. And then, if President Trump makes baseless allegations, they say, oh, my God. Oh, my. Or if he makes allegations that need to be investigated, they say, oh, my God. Look, he made these allegations. They're baseless. They're completely baseless. Oh, no. He's tarnishing democracy. By their own standards, by their own definition of what tarnishing or undermining democracy is all about, they've engaged in the conduct. They're the ones who sow discord and division, and they're the ones who have fostered this distrust of government and our institutions. Like, when Trump became president, they came up with these like lame and absurd complaints. Well, he's fostered distrust in our institutions. So what? If anything, you should hold your institutions accountable, or your government agencies. What? Since when did American citizens look at government or media or any, industry and say, gosh, we really trust. We trust without any verification. Trust but verify is what Reagan said. And it's like they had to fabricate these tinfoil hat fantasies. They had to fabricate these investigations because they had nothing specific on Trump. They had nothing specific. Now, he gave them, I keep trying to tell everybody. And, I think that a couple viewers said, how dare you critique Trump? It's like, well, I'm doing it because I want all his accomplishments not to be erased. He was the first president to step foot in North Korea. He was the first president. He presided over the Abraham Accords. We had record low unemployment throughout most of his tenure. The top 12 states with the highest unemployment rates are all Democratic-run states. Go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That's not Trump's fault. We had record low unemployment throughout most of his tenure. The pandemic wasn't Trump's fault. Look at what's taking place with New York's Governor Cuomo. He's on his way to impeachment there. For an actual decision-making that led to the loss of thousands of lives, thousands upon thousands of lives. Nothing specifically that Trump did can be attributed to a loss of life. Nothing. You can't say that, well, Trump should have known. Yeah, and then what did you want him to do in Michigan, for example, or in New Jersey, or in New York, or California, or Democratic-run states hit most by the pandemic? They have the highest unemployment rates according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and they have the worst outcomes according to the New York Times statistics on the pandemic. How is that Trump's fault? The best outcomes and the lowest unemployment rates are in red states. Go look it up. I'm not making it up. It's Democrats who wanted to make the pandemic a red-blue issue, a red state, blue state issue. And if you do, there's no, that's actually a losing proposition if you want to turn that into politics. So you look at what's taking place with New York's governor. Newsom's, there's a push to recall him in California. The Lincoln Project absolutely imploded because its co-founder was engaged in the most despicable, allegedly engaged in the most despicable activity. Then you had, 1 month in terms of foreign policy? What have I been saying for this whole time? I'm going to vote against. The Democratic Party is a far more hawkish political party in terms of foreign policy than Trump. Trump has a populist message on a whole bunch of topics. Tariffs instead of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, removing Americans from never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts. So yeah, I mean, he's a great president. He was a great president. His presence on social media, that was not good. He should never have insulted LeBron James. He should never have insulted NFL athletes. And that's an important point. I know that people, I wait until like 10 minutes in to say that. People say, oh, well, you know what? I don't care what he did on. I know you don't care. That's the point. You don't care. You voted for Trump. I voted for President Trump because he's a good president. He allocated more funding to historically black colleges and universities than any president ever. Nobody knows this. Nobody knows this because of his social media presence. He unfortunately allowed them to erase every single accomplishment, or try to erase every single accomplishment. Now he's going to be speaking at the Conservative Political Action Conference, and so you have a situation where media will have to finally come to terms with the fact that not only is President Trump here to stay, but he runs the Republican Party, because the Republican Party is now fully a populist party. People don't want business as usual. After the Bush years, Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld, the worst presidents of all time. The worst president of all time. And in another 8 years of President Obama destroying Libya with a failed NATO intervention, people didn't want business as usual. President Trump got a greater percentage of non-white voters than any president, than any Republican in 60 years, according to Newsweek. He was able to do so because we had record low unemployment throughout most of his tenure, record low unemployment for black and Latino citizens. And he focused on economic opportunity zones, First Step Act, lots of things that he's not getting credit for that people don't even look at because his social media presence, the Twitter profile, really just it was basically all it was for the past 4 years was a media meltdown. There was a media meltdown. And they stomped their feet. They got upset. They did everything possible to sensationalize and blame Trump for everything. Every single thing was his fault. Every single thing under the sun was his fault. And there was no pushback. He worked when things weren't his fault, he worked with Russia. And when they found out he didn't work with Russia, they then said, well, he actually said things and he didn't condemn things, and everything was this temper tantrum. They had this temper tantrum for 4 years. And in some ways, he fed onto it. In some ways, he allowed them to create this image, and it was, not a good thing. But in terms of, it undermined his own cause. But in terms of the Russia probe, they set him up and framed him. We have evidence right now. Peter Strzok texted his friend with benefits. We will stop Trump. What more do you need? What more? What more do you need? You have a top counterintelligence official saying, we will stop Trump. I mean, if the tables were turned and it was, we will stop Biden or Clinton or anyone, I mean, could you imagine? They'd put their thinking caps on and they would say, oh yeah, you know what? You have for 1 year, you had Democrats doing everything possible to disparage law enforcement. But then when it was the FBI officials that went after Trump, oh, that was a good thing. They set up and framed Michael Flynn. They set up and framed Carter Page. They set up and framed George Papadopoulos. With Roger Stone, he kind of made his own bed with his he stated things that just weren't true, and tried to engage in this kind of these claims that just didn't pertain to reality, but then they caught on to that and they tried to set him up and frame him from the things that he said that weren't true. But nobody needed to be a conduit. There never needed to be this. There wasn't a grandiose, elaborate plot. They made up everything to save face. Manafort, going after Manafort. He was working with the brother of Clinton's campaign chairman. He was paying the brother of Clinton. They had their own consulting relationship also. And the misinformation is unbelievable. Michael Flynn, they set up and framed, but he never worked with any, he was never consulting for Turkey while he was national security advisor. They have nothing. Now they're going after Trump's taxes. And with Michael Flynn, they sent agents just to set him up and frame him. That's it. That's all, for no reason. He didn't work with Russia. They utilized any possible excuse, the most malicious tactics. Well, he spoke to Sergei Kislyak. So what? So they said Jeff Sessions spoke to Sergei Kislyak. That's why Jeff Sessions was afraid for his, was covering his own rear end, and then started helped start the Mueller probe, or gave a green light. He recused himself. You never see Democrats recuse themselves from anything. And this was allowed, it wasn't the Democratic Party, it was allowed by Republicans. Jeff Sessions, Paul Ryan, the Mitt Romney, Ben Sasse, Richard Burr type of Republicans. They didn't. President Trump has forever changed the Republican Party. Thank God. History will be very kind to President Trump. People who think the history won't be kind to Trump don't know much about history. They think that tyrants and despots tweeted bad things. Okay? Trump presided over prison reform legislation and made us a less militant country. You can say, oh, he did this and that. It took a month. It took a month for Biden. Okay, God forbid you can imagine what the smart power and the neoconservative type of foreign policy. But ladies and gentlemen, give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now. Durham probe continues. And once there's political will from the Republican Party in 2022, you'll see a whole new ball game, especially with the Durham probe special counsel.